Hello, I'm Thomas Howard, a cannabis lawyer that you can find on the internet by Googling cannabis lawyer and clicking on my website, cannabisindustrylawyer.com, where you'll find this. Cannabisindustrylawyer.com is an online resource for information that you need to navigate the legal cannabis markets, whether in marijuana or in hemp. Which brings us to today's episode, the top 5 benefits for hiring the right lawyer for your cannabis business. Hang out until the end, and that's when I'll tell you what state is now the record holder for the strongest marijuana flower grown. And don't forget to subscribe to receive notice of our weekly newscast about cannabis legalization news. To begin, I would like to start with a story about a famous relationship between a businessman and a lawyer. They first met in 1959 when the lawyer was 35 and the businessman was 29. It was Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. Charlie Munger would later be talked into joining Berkshire Hathaway by Warren Buffett. At Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie earned the name the Indomitable No Man. And that is one of the things that you have to understand about what sophisticated business counsel can bring to your cannabis business. A second set of eyes that are sophisticated. So by Charlie always saying no to whatever Warren was thinking, they were able to think more critically about the investments that they made, and together they both made a lot more money. Here are the top 5 benefits that your attorney should bring to your cannabis team. You see, something you have to understand is that the cannabis business is a team sport, especially considering the types of licenses and regulations and security and all the other stuff and distributions. And there's a lot of moving parts into that cannabis industry. So you need to have the right cannabis lawyer on your team to make sure that your cannabis business has the best chance to navigate to success. So let's get to those benefits. First, attorneys understand the complex requirements and the high barriers to entry to the adult marijuana market. The high cost of entry could even be in the hemp market simply because creating a business takes a large capital investment, and that is no different in marijuana, hemp, or usually any other business. Most of them you can't just start in your basement. With marijuana especially, the high cost of entry, the high cost for the barrier to entry can mean $500,000 of proving that you have those assets, coupled with tens of thousands of dollars of application costs. Then you have to look at the type of applications that you're actually going to have to submit to the state for the new licenses that are coming online. These are now becoming filled with aspects of social equity. So cannabis is a team sport. Think of all the moving parts of the cannabis industry that you have. I mean, you have the growers, then you have the trimmers, then you have the transportation between the processing and the cultivation. Maybe they're all in-house, but you still have to shunt them from one to the other. Then you have to process it. And then after it's processed, you have to package. And after you package, you have to send it over to the dispensaries where there's actually a cash transaction with the public. And then of course there's trends, and there's marketing, and there's IP. I mean, think about what could happen with plant patents if the Controlled Substances Act is changed. All of these types of complexities are at play in your cannabis business, and the right type of sophisticated industry lawyer that has knowledge can provide you with guidance to how to put that package together in a way that has the highest likelihood of being approved by the state. If it's worth putting a couple $1 million into your business plan, it's worth having a good business lawyer look at it and tell you if it is going to meet with the regulator's approval. These scoring systems that they're going to have, they can sometimes be, there's an element of magic behind it, because all these applications are going to come into the state's going to score them. It's not a system like where you can get a liquor license just by having a public hearing. They put a cap on the number of the licenses. So you need to understand the complex regulations that the people that are granting the licenses look at. That's one benefit that an experienced cannabis industry lawyer can bring to your team. Number 2, cannabis lawyers have an understanding of the federal, which currently is quite bad, and the state law, which very often is unique unto the state itself. And these two types of laws you need to navigate. And you have to protect against the federal laws, which appear to kind of be there in the sense that nobody's shutting down Colorado or any state that has adult use cannabis. The feds have not enforced their law, and there has never been more bills in Congress to change the law. The states that we have currently are showing that it is extremely difficult to change the marijuana laws legislatively. We don't know how much longer Schedule 1 THC will remain, but it will be several years. Everybody thinks it's going to be fast. However, not one legislative state has done it, let alone states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, New York, so that a majority of the population now lives in an adult use state. I think it's going to take all of that before you get to the national level. And these types of understanding of how the federal and the state laws work, especially when it comes to banking and the Safe Banking Act, that knowledge and information is very, very valuable for when the cannabis business is trying to scale out. If it wants to go to a different state, they're going to have to understand those new states' laws. If they want to lobby Congress, what is the most effective lobbying dollar? I really think it is the Safe Banking Act, especially if they can slip it in towards the end of the budget year, but we will see. Benefit number 3, cannabis lawyers help your company with compliance. Most of the state laws for adult use marijuana provide for some type of tracking. Maybe not as effectively, not all the states are the same. Some states do a very, very good job of tracking it from the seed to the sale. Some states do an okay job of tracking it from the seed to the sale. And then with hemp, they try to track it from, at least in volume, of how much the yield was. I don't know if they aren't tracking it from seed to sale. Compliance from seed to sale is a nice little encapsulation, but think about all the steps that requires. Every employee usually needs to have a license in the adult use marijuana. Other laws that come into play that are constraining where those marijuana businesses can operate, or how they have to have the right security installed, or they have to have the right inspectors to test the product, typically that happens prior to packaging, and then and then there's also the packaging compliance that you have to do. Do those packages have the right labels to warn the person that it's got marijuana inside it? Do those labels also then require, as they do for some medical marijuana, to have a disclosure as to its purity and all its testing of its cannabinoid profile, and an affirmation that there are no impurities in the actual flower itself? Each state has its own specific set of laws. There is no uniform set yet. The cannabis lawyer allows the marijuana business to be able to maintain compliance at each particular level of the supply chain. Benefit number 4, industry knowledge. Now, your lawyer that you hire for your cannabis business shouldn't be a criminal lawyer. I'm not saying that they can't be a criminal lawyer, especially if that criminal lawyer is a businessman and maybe they own their own firm. Many lawyers do not go to law school to become business owners. They don't go to law school to become managers. Some do. Some also get their MBA when they do have their JD. I wanted to do that, but I just couldn't justify another $50,000, $60,000 of additional debt. Ugh. If your cannabis lawyer has industry knowledge specific to the cannabis industry, but also general business principles, for example, buy-sell agreements, and by that, I mean, are we talking about Article 2 contracts or like actual M&A of the cannabis business, which presents all of its own unique issues, as there are a lot of restrictions to who may own the cannabis business, which would get back to point number 3, compliance. Being a cannabis lawyer is no different really than being a general business lawyer, but you're a general business lawyer to a particular industry sector. And they have them for healthcare, they have them for aviation, they have them for banking. I was a bank lawyer for 10 years. The deeper your cannabis lawyer's business knowledge about the marijuana industry, the better. Ask them all these types of questions about how, you would structure transactions, or if you have particular problems with the state when it comes to employee getting a background check, or whatever presentation of problems that you have, maybe some IPs involved. There could be a lot of various things that can be going on in a lot of parts. Benefit number 5, lawyers do one thing really, really well. They mitigate risk. Remember how I was starting this off with a story about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger? Charlie Munger was referred to as the abominable no man in Berkshire Hathaway. because lawyers typically say, no, don't do that. You should probably just watch out for this. That's all lawyers are really trained to do, especially the ones that are in the litigation aspect. And there is often a cleavage between what they call corporate transactional lawyers and litigators. Now, when it comes to contracts specifically, I mean, it'd be one thing if you're litigating in tort, but when it comes to contracts specifically, you should have some continuity and consistency between the contractual drafting and then the contractual enforcement. If you just focus on one section of it, I think that you kind of lose the forest for the trees, in the sense that, sure, you've structured this deal together. What happens if it all goes kaput and you have to go enforce it in a court of law? How are people going to be getting out of the contract, or how are they going to be enforcing that contract through the court systems? Think about those aspects of it. The lowering of your risk in business operations is something valuable in and of itself. It's one of the reasons why people buy insurance, or it's one of the reasons why people hire lawyers, to make sure that the deal is papered well. It can be a great thing when you put a deal together. A very exhilarating thing where people get the opportunity to create value and make more money. So make sure that your lawyer is really good at spotting problems and insulating you from them, because that is one of the benefits that a lawyer provides to their business clients, the mitigation of risk. Thanks for joining me on this, and remember, the cannabis industry is a team sport, and one of those important players in your team is the cannabis business lawyer that you have, as they are going to have to advise on numerous aspects of the business operation, mostly because of how highly regulated this industry is and will continue to be. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much. Give us a like and a subscribe so that you can get notification of the cannabis legalization news that we release every Wednesday. Beginning of this, I asked, what state has the record for the strongest cannabis flower? And big reveal is Illinois. Illinois just produced a 37.5% THC nugget from the Brownie Scout strain. It was grown by GTI, Green Thumb Industries, over in Rock Island, Illinois. Pretty amazing stuff, 37.5%. And the genetics aren't just at the marijuana level. I'm seeing genetics for CBD hemp that is going way beyond the 20% threshold. I'm seeing CBD hemp into 23%. Can we crack 40% THC in a cannabis flower? Who knows? We'll find out together on Cannabis Legalization News. See you next time.